Welcome to another end of the year review. This is going to be my personal Carson Grubaugh's top 10 books of 2023 list. This is not the Living the Line top 10 because I don't know what Sean's top 10 books are. The other thing that's going to be different about how I handle the top 10 this year to previous years is I've just read so much stuff over the last couple years. We're putting out a video every day of the week. I'm putting out a video every day of the week with the one-man review, and then oftentimes either interviewing people or reviewing books with Sean on the weekends, and that's coming out on Saturdays. So I've read way over 300 books this year. There's a lot that I read that I don't do reviews of because it's continuations of series that I've already talked about or different things. And that's made it really hard to make a list this year. Also, there's things that have come out like last year or previous years that I read this year that were really high on my list of favorite things I've read this year that didn't come out this year. So what I've done actually is I've made 3 top 10 lists for this year. And that's how I'm going to do this video this time, because I can't just talk about the books that came out this year, and I can't just limit myself to the books that I've read this year. So we're going to do 3 different lists. I'm cheating. I get 30 books. But the first list is going to be things that are ongoing or have been ongoing that I've probably talked about in past years that I find to be exceptional and that I always look forward to or am looking forward to more of. Some of them have just started, some of them are in the middle, some are stopping, but kind of like ongoing releases that I've just been really excited about in this year. Then there are books that I've read this year, and I don't think I have 10 of them, but books I've read this year that didn't come out this year that I think are just superb and things that have stuck in my mind all year in 2023 since I've read them. And then there's the list of like books, the top 10 books that actually came out this year. So really we're going to be looking at 30 books in total, plus 2 that I'm just grateful, 2 Living the Line books that I'm grateful for that came out this year. So we'll start first off with books that have been coming out or will continue to be coming out that are kind of serial releases that I've found really compelling and exciting over the last year. The first one in my big stack here is Sean Knickerbocker's the editor on this, but Sean Knickerbocker's anthology, The Rust Belt Review. I've read all 5 of them now, done videos on all 5. This most recent issue came out, the volume 5 came out this year, and basically everything that Sean is putting into the Rust Belt Review is exceptional comics. I love his taste in comics. It's my favorite anthology coming out just because of the type of content that's in it. It's the type of content that really speaks to me, and it's the one I feel like I'm most consistently kind of engaged with. So yeah, Rust Belt Review put together by Sean Knickerbocker always has an amazing set of artists in it and always amazing work. So that's something I continue to look forward to. Something that wrapped up that has been coming out, but I read it all in one big chunk this year, thanks to Tom Kaczynski at Uncivilized Books, sending the first 11 of these over as a gift, along with a lot of other Uncivilized books, is Craig Thompson's Ginseng Roots. This issue, number 12, came out, and you can now order all 12 together. They even come in a little box set that you can store them on your shelf, kind of with his other books looking really nice, and that will be coming out soon. So this series is over, but it's something that's been going on for the last however many years being published, and it finally ended this year, and I consumed it all this year. Really enjoyed it. Craig Thompson is an absolute genius of comics, and anything he's putting out is great. Something I'm really grateful for and something I'm excited to get the next 2 volumes of is Rupert M. Molott's The Extraordinary Part, which is being put out by Fantagraphics Books. I've done a review on this and pretty much all the books that we're talking about in this video series. This is something that I had seen some of the art on Instagram and actually sent it to Sean being like, oh my God, we got to try and grab this book before Fantagraphics gets it, because I know they've worked with these artists before, and it's such a beautiful book. I'm trying to find like a good spread here. It's such a beautiful book. with all of these like strange, surreal entities that are in it. It's just beautiful colors, fascinating story, absolutely cool, trippy visuals. So I'm really excited about this series of books. I think there's 2 more to come, but the first one came out, I think, at the end of last year from Fantagraphics. I got it with the Fanabucks sale this year. So really excited that that's being put out. Sad that it's not through Living the Line, but Fantagraphics does a fantastic job on what they do. Our friend Chad Bill used the re-up. Issue number 4 is, I think, done and coming out soon, but this is some of the coolest auto-bio stuff I've seen in a long time. Chad is an absolutely phenomenal writer. This is all based on his experience being a, I believe, multi-state weed dealer, and it's a real peek into a part of the world that, I have no involvement with, but it gives me deep dive into what it must be like to be a drug dealer. Chad's a phenomenal writer, and then Juliette DeWitt is a phenomenal illustrator who's doing him real justice. And it's such, I mean, you can even see like from the old school phone setup on the front. It's just a really, and the 2-color, the green and the black and white. Everything about this is really thought out, really well done, really compelling reading. A number of the things that are on this list are manga because they're being serialized, and they have been for, they're being serialized or will be being serialized for a long time. One of those that made it onto the list for the first time this year, because I started reading it this year, is Homunculus by Hideo Yamamoto. The premise of this is really cool. The art in it's really fantastic. The writing is fantastic, like the way the premise plays out, the exploration of psychology. Everything about this is a really cool book. I guess most of Hideo Yamamoto's stuff's pretty intense, but I do hope that this leads to getting a fairly entire collection of his work over here, because I'm really, really enjoying this work, and I look forward to more of it. Another ongoing series that Tom Kaczynski at Uncivilized Books sent over most of, and then I bought this most recent issue, is Tom Kaczynski's own book, Cartoon Dialectics. This is the smartest, most philosophical, theoretical book about comics art, reality. This is an absolutely engaging work to me. I recorded a huge hour and a half long review of it because it engaged me so much that I had to engage with it that deeply. I know that there are, according to these, are issues I don't have that are probably out of print, and I know Tom's going to continue doing more of these. So I really look forward at some point being able to read all the Cartoon Dialectics, but I've got issues 1 through 4 now of this volume, and an issue from a previous volume. So this is an ongoing series that anytime something new comes out, I will grab it up, and if it comes out collected where I can get the whole thing, that is a no-brainer for me. Then I'm going to cheat a little bit and put 2 books as one, because really this is just my excitement about an author. This year, finally, for the first time, we're getting English language translations of the works of Sakamoto Shinichi, or Shinichi Sakamoto, depending on how you choose to arrange the names. #DRCL is his newest work, and this is being serialized pretty closely after it's being finished in Japan. Innocent, which will lead into Innocent Rouge eventually, is his work prior to #DRCL, and is a good, long, beefy work with a lot of beautiful art in it. I've been waiting for this to be in English, and this is another one that, like, when Living the Line started as a channel, and we were hopeful about Sean's potentials as a publisher, I was really behind the scenes hoping that we could finagle getting this, but Dark Horse got it. Viz is doing this. Both amazing works, gorgeous art, but the most exciting thing about this to me is that if these are being released and if these do well, then I will finally get one of my top 2, top 3 comics of all time, Shinichi Sakamoto's The Climber. That's not to say these aren't great works as well. It's just The Climber really is. I've read a lot of comics, and it's in my top 2 or top 3. So beautiful things. I've been looking forward to this. I hope these sell well enough that we'll get them in oversized, because this art deserves it. But these are absolutely amazing, and I cannot wait to have all these. I can't wait. I've read all the Innocent digitally. I can't wait to be able to read #DRCL in completion, because it's still being worked on. Really excited to reread these, being able to see the art printed. The reproduction on these is phenomenal. So the works of Sakamoto Shinichi is an ongoing concern for me now, and God, I hope it leads to The Climber. Another one that I've shouted out, a mangaka that I've shouted out in both of my previous year-end videos is Shuo Osimi's. It started with this series, Blood on the Tracks, and that was one of my ongoing that I love, and it's still one of the books I absolutely like. When a new volume comes out, I get super excited about it. But I've also started following his other series that's currently being released, Welcome Back Alice. Really enjoyed that. And then earlier in this year, I went, had some extra money from some art sales, and I went and bought everything else I could get a hold of by Shuo Osimi. I think pretty much the complete works in English. Everything that he's done, blew through it all, loved it all. Was gonna make a video, but just didn't know how to cover it because it's such a big body of work. B, it's thematically very consistent throughout. Like he obviously was abused by classmates as a child, potentially abused by his mother as a child. All of his characters go through something like that. All of them are very bleak, dark stories, and they all end with kind of redemption for the characters. There's usually a time jump where like the first half, three quarters of the series will just be absolute awful human behavior. You want to put it away. And then the last quarter or half will be these characters 10 years later or something as adults overcoming their trauma, and these very redemptive stories like that, even though oftentimes you're getting into stuff like demon succubus prostitutes sucking guys' souls out of their dicks or weird stuff like that. So I just didn't know how to get into his work totally in a video, but Shuo Osimi is someone I've now read everything I can from him, and I look forward to anything else that's coming out. Particularly Blood on the Tracks is the one that got me into him, and I still think it's one of his best works. I think The Flowers of Evil is probably my favorite complete work of his so far. Because of this channel, I've gotten into Berserk, and was skeptical about it at first, but by volume 3 really got sold. I think me and Sean have only talked about up to volume 3, but I've plowed through and read them all, and I know now this is the most recent volume, volume 14, that collects up to where Kotaro Miura passed away. So this is like his final volume of Berserk. I know that Berserk is still being completed by his studio and his best friend. I hope that material gets collected in this hardcover format eventually, because I would like to have it all. I would like to know how it ends, even though it's not his ending. I know that's coming out now, and so it'll probably be years before there's enough material for another one of these. So as of right now, I'm considering this series complete, but I do look forward to, hopefully in the future, more of these. But it has turned out to be like the great manga that everyone makes it out to be. A little up and down, but those flows make sense in the big scope of the series as a whole. But I can't imagine being a reader reading some of these volumes as they're coming out monthly for years on end. But yes, very, very grateful for that and have been enjoying that. And then the most exciting ongoing work is work that I found this year at MoCA. I have, like with the Shuo Osimi work, tried a couple of times to record videos about this work and not been able to because of the scope of it. And then there are some other reasons now that I'm holding off on an interview that I've recorded with the author of this work, and why I'm not releasing videos on these things that hopefully we'll talk about in a while on the channel. But at MoCA this year, I came across the table of an artist named Nicholas Offerman. These are his two latest releases, Katie Kohler #3 and Orange #8. Orange #8's the final in an 8-issue series, and Katie Kohler's #3 of 5, I believe. I bought Nicholas's work at MoCA. I went to his table, and I just liked what I saw, and there was a whole bunch of stuff, and I said, "Give me everything." And he looked at me like, "You fucking crazy? You know how much work I have?" And I said, "Yeah, it looks like a lot." But it looks good. I want it all. Just give it to me all. I came home with, I think there's something like 2,000 plus pages of comics at this point that Nicholas Offerman has produced. Not the guy that played Ron Swanson. That's part of, I figured out, like, why have I never heard of this guy? His work is so fucking good. I figured part of that is he shares a name with a celebrity. So he's really hard to find on the internet. And if I would have never, he doesn't have an Instagram, or he has a Patreon, but it's hard to get to. So if I hadn't found him at Mocha, I don't think I would have ever seen this work, and I haven't heard anyone else talk about it, haven't heard anyone else share this stuff. But it is some of the best comics that I've ever read. It's some of the most interesting. Well, it's got great art, first off. Nicholas, what I picked up at Mocha represented from 2011 or 2012 to current. And he's been working consistently and putting work out consistently since then. So, like I said, 2,000 plus pages of work. And his art's definitely gotten better. But you can see like this really cool way that he's using color, the cool cartooning going on in this, the really kind of sophisticated formalisms. But the coolest thing about Nicholas's work is that every series that he does, or every graphic novel he releases, every book he does, is a standalone in and of itself. So like Orange is a complete story in and of itself, and Katie Color is a complete story in and of itself. And you can read them in any order that you want and get like you could pick up any Nicholas Offerman book and feel like you've got a complete, satisfying, really, really good graphic novel on its own. But as I read more of his stuff, I started reading like, oh, like a character in Katie Kohler that's just a background character is like a main character in Orange, or someone who's a background character in here is a background character in here, but is a main character in one of his other books. So he's basically built up this entire like universe. When I talked to him, he compared it to like how Stephen King operates, where there's like these little connections, even though they're all complete stories. And that format just really sucked me in. I got absolutely enamored with this. Like I said, I had 2,000 plus pages of comics, and I blew through it in 2 days because that's all I did. I just couldn't put the stuff down. And especially by the time I was done with Orange, which was the first one I read, I had already just said, this is awesome work. I love this. Why have I never heard of this guy? And I didn't even know that it was part of this larger structure. And as I kept reading and saw this larger structure, I just got absolutely obsessed. So Nicholas Offerman stuff has been like probably my favorite thing out of 2023. But I can't say it was done in 2023 because really it's a body of work that's been going on since 2011, I believe, 2012, and I just becoming exposed to it. And it's ongoing, and having talked to him and stuff, I know it will continue to go on for the rest of his life. This is a guy who just has not slowed down once and has been doing this just by himself, self-publishing all of this. He's obviously committed to it. So really excited about that work. Really can't wait to read the rest, and really can't wait until it's the right time where I can kind of go through the stuff and show it. But like I said, there's some reasons why I'm holding on to some of the videos. But yeah, get hype about Nicholas Offerman. He's really awesome. Okay, the next category of books that I want to give a top 10. I don't think I actually have 10 here. I'm not sure. Less than 10 for sure. But another category of books is books that weren't released in 2023, books that aren't ongoing series necessarily, but books that I read this year and really impacted me. So we will go through those now. The Children of the Sea, I'll be doing a video about these with Tori eventually because she thinks these are really cool books as well, and she's just not done reading them. So you can see my sticky notes video coming on this. But Daisuke Igarashi, after we finally recorded our review of Witches with Brandon and Sean, which we've been meaning to do for like 2 years now probably, I had to go out and buy Children of the Sea because doing that review just made me fall even more in love with Igarashi's work. And then Brandon and I did a video, a reaction video to him drawing on Monpin, and I was like, I've been wanting to buy these books. I love this artist. I just need to do it. Children of the Sea, 5-volume series that's put out by Viz, and they're kind of going out of print now, it looks like, so I'm glad I got them. This is some of my favorite manga that I've read in a long time. I really, really hope that Viz starts putting out more of Daisuke Igarashi's stuff. I know there's other stuff he's done, and I hope they start collecting it because these are really phenomenal works. So this was a big, big highlight of the year for me in terms of my reading. A book early on in the year that I got that didn't come out this year is Victor Huguenot's The Spectators. I thought this was a phenomenally well done book, a really smart book, a book that seems real light and breezy to look at and to read, but is so dense with like just philosophical richness and such masterful cartooning throughout. Let me see if I can just flip to page here that can show some of the just really nice cartooning. Just really simple images like this that build up a really thorough kind of philosophical treatise on perception and identity and all kinds of cool stuff like that. Two books in the Nightlight series by Lorena Alvarez. The only reason these aren't in the ongoing thing is I don't know if there will be more of these, but the two No-Brow books in the Nightlight series by Lorena Alvarez, Nightlights and Hikotia, are really beautiful books. These are books that as soon as I got them, I was completely enamored with them. And Tori actually saw me doing, she was editing a review and was like, no, I need to read that and do the review with you. So this is a book that we both love, the Nightlight series. And Lorena Alvarez's art is just stunning in these books. And the messages in the books are really great. Like, these are great books for kids. Absolutely love those books. Young Francis by Hartley Lynn. This was recommended to me by Alex Nall, and I went out and bought all of Hartley Lynn's work that was on his site and just absolutely love it. And 100% agree with Alex Nall that Young Francis is a masterpiece of cartooning. It's a really amazing story. It's a very down-to-earth, like, adult drama about a woman kind of making a career choice, a woman who's working in a lawyer's office, but it sounds boring, like a boring drama, but it's so well done, so well cartooned, so well written. It's absolutely engaging. So love this work. Huge fan of Hartley Lynn now, and will be buying anything else that Hartley Lynn puts out. Linnea Sturt's A Frog in the Fall. This got reprinted, thankfully, because of the Eisner nomination, and this is such a beautiful book. Such an adorable story. This is another one that, Tori, of course I picked a page with no art on it. Tori saw me looking at this and had to immediately grab it and read it and was enamored with it as well. So, I mean, that's one of these things where I know, like, a book is great, is just me having it around the house and me enjoying it, looking at it. If she's seen it and being like, that looks good and wants to grab it, like, that's always a good thing. And usually it is, like with the Nightlights or Frog in the Fall, like, it's something I've really enjoyed as well. So that's like an extra stamp for a book if Tori sees me reading it and grabs it. And that definitely happened with Frog in the Fall as well. It's just a beautiful book, beautiful production all the way through. Nicholas Nade, I have two works by this artist that I got this year, but the Paralisi, both of them are put out by Editions Metier. This is a beautiful book. I did a video on it, but it's basically the best abstract comic I've ever seen. What I call poetics of form that's on display in this book is just absolutely astonishing. I think this is like a real masterpiece of abstract cartooning, and I don't know that I've seen anyone do it better. This book, I think, is massively just kind of influential on my views going forward with arranging pages and things, like the kind of mathematics behind it. And I think just a real stunning accomplishment in comics and visual design as well. So anything else that Nicholas Nade does, I'm going to be snatching that up, and I'm really glad I found those. The Editions Metier, in general, they have this line of abstract comics, and they're all phenomenal, but I think this artist in particular is my favorite of the bunch, and that book in particular. And then a book that I picked up in the Fantagraphics Fantabucks sale as an older book that I got for free, or that I bought, I forget, but I got that in a sale, is the Thud by Mikael Ross. And this is just such a heartwarming, touching, sad, happy little book about a person with mental disabilities, caretaker dying and having to reconcile with that and living in a group home. It's just such a sweet, well-drawn, well-written, touching book. The fantastic cartooning in it, just the writing, the ability to suck me into the characters. Here's just some of the cartooning in this one. I thought was a really phenomenal book. This one came out, I think, in 21, 22. Yeah, it came out in 2021, so I missed it, but I'm really glad I got this. I had kind of been avoiding it because I thought it was like a silly superhero book based on the cover, but it is absolutely not what this is. It is a phenomenal piece of cartooning, and definitely has me interested in getting the rest of Mikhail Ross's work as it's released in English. So those are the books. I don't think that's 10, but those are the books that didn't come out this year that have lingered in my mind when I think about, like, oh, I got to put together a best of video. These are ones that are popping up, and crap, it's not in this year. So that's why I did that this way. And then on to like my favorite books from this year that are actually published this year. I'm not going to choose a number one. I know last year I had like my book of the year. I don't know that I can do that this year because there's a few that are in that category. So I will just kind of give my top 10. Two that I don't feel comfortable putting in there because they're Living the Line productions, but they're books that really enjoyed, so this is a cheap way to do it. Well, one that I really enjoyed, which is Brandon Graham's Volume 1 of Moonray, with Volume 2 soon on the way. But love Brandon's work. I think Moonray is the best, the most beautiful thing he's done yet. And I also really, really mean it when I say that this feels like, especially knowing that there's a video game in development as well, that this property itself feels like it has the potential for being the first 21st century myth, and the majority of that is due to the world building that Brandon's doing in the game design, and then also in the stories that he's doing here. The way that the world is being set up as driven by Brandon really sets this up for a post-human future that we're facing with AI, but not in a dystopian way, in a kind of beautiful and poetic way. And I think just the way that Brandon personally grapples with the subjects of identity and things like that in his work, something that he comes back to in his work oftentimes, are developed here even further with those kind of post-humanity ideas involved. And it makes for a beautiful personal piece, but it's also a licensed property. And I think that actually, to have a licensed property that's so personal at root is a really, really powerful thing. So, really happy to be at all tangentially related to this. Just a brother in the Living the Line publishing company, and a brother in the Living the Line channel as our most frequent guest star. We consider him a third member of the crew. But it's not just because of that the book's on there. And then just personally very grateful. I can't put this on the list because it's my book, but I wouldn't say it's a book of the year, but I think this is the wildest experiment in comics of the year, probably, I hope, or one of the strangest comic release this year, I hope. And just very, very excited to have this product on hand that is pretty much exactly what I envisioned for it. Like when we released these in 2022 as floppies, it was cool. That was the plan, but to be able to get to put it together, and for Sean to play ball and help me design such a beautiful casing for the book here, the beautiful production on the inside that Sean always gets. This has allowed me to take a subject that I've been talking about for 20 plus years of my artistic career, the philosophy of information, the ethical concerns of the information society, and especially what I call a banal content apocalypse that's now being made real by the AIs. That I got to talk about all these things in a public venue finally for the first time in 20 years, and feel like I was able to make my final statement on it and collect essays I've written over the years and all that stuff. So I'm really, really grateful and happy to have this book on my shelf, because it's the first time I've ever seen a project envisioned and sent to the public exactly how I imagined it in my head, and really has let me close the book on a chapter of my artistic production that's been my core for the last 20 years. A lot of cool opportunities to work with one of my all-time heroes, Luciano Floridi. Just really, really been a phenomenal, set of circumstances leading out from publishing that book. So those two I'm throwing on the list because I'm grateful, but also they're Living the Line books, so I'm not going to rate them as my top 10 because that would seem a little improper, even though I have nothing to do with what Sean does on Living the Line Publishing other than making the one book. So my top 10 for this year, just got this one, just did a review on it. Axe Wielder John by Nick Pitara. I've been waiting about 2 years for this to come out since it was crowdfunded and since we first talked to Nick. Finally here, as beautiful as I thought. as silly and goofy and over the top gory as I thought, also as heartfelt and as touching and as down to earth as I thought. So I think this is the kind of thing, this and Moonray together give me hope for new types of stories being made that play with classic morals and tropes and stuff like that, but bring the action adventure kind of stuff to it. I feel like there's a lot now where people are leaning into silly tropes, but getting really serious, heartfelt, heartwarming, like good messages underneath the work. And I think Axe Wilder John's kind of one, and Moonray are leading the pack on that. So really, really excited by this book and really excited to see where Nick takes it. Another one that I just did a review on, but it's very much on my mind, is Miguel Via's Milky Way. This just came out from Fantagraphics at the end of the year. And, you know, kind of like with Nicholas Offerman's work, there's these cool page structures, these cool use of color, a really nice style throughout. I think a really good, again, adult, down-to-earth drama. Some of that Chris Ware influence I like, but more realism in it. So I'll definitely be thinking about this book for a lot of the time. I'm always worried with these ones that just came out, that it's just because they're on my mind, it just came out, but I'm pretty sure that's one I'll be thinking about for a long time. One that came out much earlier in the year is Thomas Girton, The Forgotten Painter, by Oscar Zarate, who I only knew from his collaboration with Alan Moore. It's really nice to see that Oscar Zarate is still doing work, and I wish I could find more of it, because this book is by far one of the best books of the year. It's both a story in and of itself of three very interesting, compelling, well-written characters going through real-life adult drama, but also through those characters we learn about the real-life struggles, the biography of the painter Thomas Girton, and this is probably the best piece of like fictional biography I've ever read. Oscar Zarate just absolutely sucked me in. It's a huge book. It's masterful cartooning all throughout. There's masterful painting, masterful writing, just a really phenomenal book that is, you know, strong contender for Book of the Year for me. Smaller project, but an artist that I'm always excited to get stuff by is Gareth Brooks's Timetables. Gareth has released a couple pieces this year. I could put any one of them on here, but I think Timetables was probably my favorite. Gareth is always coming up with very interesting, and I have my own, you know, posted reviews on all these, so go check those out. But Gareth is always finding really interesting new material approaches to making his art. Those material approaches always feed into the story as well, and the way that he deals with the idea of twinning and like this fold out structure in these books, because these fold out like an accordion style in the way he actually made them, not in this collection here. But the way he captures that in this book and the way that that drives the story and kind of the revelation at the end of the story are all really well handled and emotionally and viscerally impactful. So that's cool. Another book that just landed, just got finished, it crowdfunded and shipped like right at the end of the year, is Zhang Yada's Optometry. Sean and I just did an analysis of it together, but it's just chock full of, I don't know how well this is going to pick up, but chock full of all kinds of amazing images, totally psychedelic. It looks disconnected as I flip through it, but it's not. It's all one connected story and one connected set of visual ideas playing out. Really enjoyed this book. Think that this is really exciting for the future of comics. This also represents something about this year in my own reading where I got exposed to a huge swath of underground comics from China, and there's a number of them that could have made it into these different lists, but this was by far the most impressive thing that I saw from a Chinese artist. It wasn't from the publisher Paradise Systems, which is publishing the majority of these works. This one is from Driftwood Press and was crowdfunded. But this Paradise Systems and Yan Kong's Narrative Addiction and all of this underground Chinese comics I'm finding is a really exciting thing. And there's a number of works that are really good. I just think that the Optometry is like this big, kind of exceptional piece, but there's plenty of works in there. So that's been a big part of my year, something I could have talked about. Early on in the year, this book, Land of the Dead, along with an interview that we did with Alexis Deacon, really helped clarify some of my own thoughts on story, mythology, and also some of my own interpretations, especially the symbolism of the tree, which has been a very important kind of symbolic understanding for me over the last year or so. So this book by Brian McDonald and Toby Cypress, I think this came, I'm trying to look for a date on it. I think it came out in January. It came out pretty early in the year, if I remember correct. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe it came out last year. I don't think so. But this book is basically a book about storytelling. It's a book about symbols, and it unpacks the kind of standard heroes, myth symbols, but more focused on what happens when you go down into the land of the dead in those stories. And yeah, beautiful, gorgeous art throughout by Toby Cypress. Really cool production techniques and tricks. I've always liked Toby Cypress's art. And then the writing by Brian McDonald is, real masterclass in like symbols and tropes and how those work, and combined, like I said, with the talk with Alexis Deacon, really blew my mind open to some thoughts that have been morally and personally impactful to me all year. So that's really appreciated in the book I value a lot. Brenna Thumler wraps up her Blankets and Sheets series with Lights. This is by far the best book in the series, the most emotionally, best well-written, most emotionally potent. The art's as good as ever, if not better. Really enjoy all the books in the series. This one's quite a bit thicker than the others, and I really think that Brenna Thumler had already produced Book of the Year type books previously, and this is definitely a surpassing of what she's done before, so even more deserving of being on this list. I cannot recommend this series enough, and particularly this book, Lights. Another one I haven't reviewed yet because I wanted to talk about it with Tori, and she's interested in reading it, but M.S. Harkness's Time Under Tension. I found M.S. Harkness's work early in the year and got a couple of her self-published things. Very excited to see that Fantagraphics has picked her up, and this is by far her solidest work. I think this is the first time in the work that I've seen that she leans into talking about being a comic artist a little bit, which is one of the things that I liked about her previous work, is that she wasn't doing that so much, but she does it in such a good way in this book, and the majority of what she's talking about is all these other really interesting aspects of her life, like dating an MMA fighter and being a sex worker and just someone who gets out and actually really lives life, and then it is able to be really raw and honest about it, able to be super hilarious. I just think, I'm not a huge fan of the autobio diary type comics in general, but this one so far surpasses what that genre normally is and is so enjoyable. I'm a huge fan of her work and look forward to anything else, and hope that Fantagraphics goes back and collects all of the previous work, because they are largely autobiographical. It would be nice to kind of have the whole story. So hopefully that's coming soon from Fantagraphics, because this is now someone that's basically in the canon of the greats, and we need to see all of that. The book that I pronounced early in the year was probably going to be my contender for Book of the Year was Elise Weaver's Big Ugly. Big Ugly was an amazing book, just about, again, the things that I'm enjoying this year tend to be about adult drama, just living real life situations and struggles, things that have to do with familial trauma and abuse, and not all just abusive situations, but those kinds of adult things. And then combined with the artwork in the book, which is very kind of similar, better, but similar to the vibe that I'm going for in the book. My book that I'm working on now, Bound, I just found so much in the art to learn in this book as well. Really beautiful story, so much going on in it. Formally, recorded a glowing praising review for this book, and still 100% feel that this is Book of the Year contender. But there's just the Thomas Gurton, there's a few Book of the Year contenders in there, so I can't pick one. But Elise Weaver's Big Ugly is really at the top of my list for books that I enjoyed on every level this year. And then also after that, I went out and got her book Something City. I recorded a review, but it's in the queue. It hasn't come out yet. So also just Elise Weaver as an artist was a big revelation to me. And again, stylistically, what's going on in this book is very, very influential to me. I'm stealing tricks and learning from Elise. And then another big contender for Book of the Year is Jillian and Mariko Tamaki's Roaming. This one, Summer, was a book that when that came out was like by far one of my favorite comics I'd read in a long time. Put Jillian Tamaki on my map in a huge way. I've gone out and got everything else I can of hers since, and have been looking forward to her next work and had no idea it was going to be such a beautiful masterpiece as Roaming. But Roaming is definitely up there for contender of Book of the Year. And I mean, if you've seen Jillian Tamaki's work before, you know what a phenomenal illustrator she is. This work really takes what she did in this one, Summer, and pushes it in a new direction, pushes it in a more adult direction, takes a different approach, but with everything that made this one, Summer, so great and more. It's a real evolution of an artist's ability. Someone who was already a master becoming even more masterful in this book. So those kind of wrap out the list. Those are my top 10 for this year. Like I said, I couldn't pick a top book. I would think for me it would be, let me look at the stack here. I would think the Thomas Gerton book, Lights, Roaming, and Big Ugly are kind of the ones that would be competing for me for Book of the Year, but I don't know. I could decide between them. I do think that in that pick, it's kind of telling where my tastes are at in terms of like the use of color in Roaming and Lights, and in Elise Weaver's work, the focus, especially in Elise Weaver's work and Jillian Tamaki, on like cartooning, real cartooning, and especially Elise Weaver's work with shape and cartooning. Another one that could have easily gone on here, I'm going to forget the name, Marwin. It just came out from Drawn and Quarterly. That book as well could have been on this list easily. But I think these books, especially by female authors that are bringing a real different flavor to the language of comics, whether it be someone like Brenna Thumler, also what I'm seeing in like Nicholas Offerman's work, where there's not black lines anymore, it's kind of all colored, the more cartooning mixed with the really nice, realistic backgrounds that you get in this, the shape-based kind of more like vector illustration style going on in Elise Weaver's Big Ugly. Those kinds of things are really sticking out to me lately. There's like a different sensibility in those books that just brings something new to comics. I guess Optometry is kind of that way as well. But those have been really influencing me both in terms of visually and in terms of writing. And then I think the Thomas Gerton book is just such an exceptional juggling act of compelling adult drama mixed with real life historical autobiography of a very interesting artist, well researched, well written. I couldn't pick between those four, but there's definitely a vibe, I think, between these three books that show where my interest is at for the year, and that seems to be being driven by female creators largely. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out next year. Looking forward to seeing how my tastes are going to shift based on what different artists are doing. As I work on my own projects, I tend to swerve towards certain different things. Like Bound is a very effeminate self-help illustration type of book in the looks, and so I'm being really influenced by those this year, and then who knows where I'll be next year. That's kind of the fun thing about doing this channel, as not just a fan of comics, but as someone who's actively making them, is I'm always constantly learning from talking to the artists, from reading the books, from breaking them down, talking to Sean about books. It's, I think, improved me as an artist significantly. I know people usually separate that's a critic and that's an artist, and usually the critics are the people who are not making the art, or the artists don't want to be critics because it's too dangerous to be critical of your peers' work. I don't know. I just, for me, I'm finding that it's just helping me as an artist to also be critically evaluating other people's work, and hopefully hopefully proving that there's a way to do it where You know, like you can just focus on what you're learning from people. And I know I've taken pot shots at a couple people, but like, come on, if we can't take shots at the big names like Klaus, then who can we take shots at? And you know, in that, me and Sean are going to do a video about Monica, I think, since we've gotten some pushback on my video for that. But one of the reasons that I wanted to take a book like Monica down a peg is because I'm having such a hard time assembling my top 10, and Monica's nowhere near it. Like, really nowhere near my top 10, and I don't think should be near anyone's top 10 as a book. And it's because there's so many stellar books like this. And it was just frustrating for me knowing that this book's going to be like a shoe-in for a book of the year on so many lists, and a shoe-in for an Eisner nod, if not a win, and all this stuff. And I'm reading all of this stuff by artists that I'm not hearing anyone talk about. Nicholas Offerman, Elise Weaver. I know Brenda Thumler's pretty popular, but Zhang Yada, the Oscar Zarate, who knew he still did work, right? Way better, way masterful, way richer writing, way better art, all this stuff. And it just pisses me off as someone who really cares about the medium that we're being lazy. It's like, you say, oh, Dan Clowes made a new book, he's big, you're just supposed to automatically like it. And to say, no, it's an all right book, but compared to what else came out this year, it's not that great. You know, that's the only time I'm going to try and be critical on this channel, is if I feel like it's trying to point something out about what's good for the medium at large. And I could be wrong about that, that's fine. But that's been a huge inspiration for me, is this channel has opened my eyes up to so much more about what's going on in comics, and that has made me such a better artist. So I know it's not something people typically do, and something people a lot of people would say not to do, but I would highly encourage you, if you're an artist, be critical. Even if you're not making videos about it, sit there, take notes like you were going to make a video. And I think being engaged with the book, not just as enjoying it from an entertainment perspective, which I definitely need to try and make more time to just enjoy stuff, but engaging with it in that critical reading way can only enhance you as a writer, as an artist, things like that. And I think if I weren't doing the channel, I wouldn't be taking the time to write notes and all that stuff in my book. I just read it and throw it away. So this has forced me to be the better reader, the critical reader that I need to be. The time, getting it all out on time and all of that stuff makes me read through books faster than I want. I wish I could read everything like 3 times or something. But overall, I think the channel has improved. Reading these great works by other artists has improved me as an artist and as a thinker. And so everyone whose work I just showed, all 30 of these artists plus, thank you so much, because I'm growing, and thank you all for giving me a venue to continue to talk about these things, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be doing it, and I wouldn't be growing. And I really hope it's enjoyable for you all, and I hope that you've enjoyed some of these books, and that if you haven't, you go check out the reviews I've done on them, that we've done on them, that me and Sean have done, and that you can think about, because these are, in my opinion, the coolest things, the best things that I've read this year.
Whole new world. 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 For you and me.